We're back on OpenLine, and we're joined by Dr. John Weil over at MTSU, political science professor. And, you know, I believe we have another caller here, so I figured we'd just go right to him, and then, you know, we'll take it from there. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. What's on your mind?
So, Dr. Weil, I'm a person who's been involved in politics behind the scenes for about 45 years, both city, state, and federal. And I've never seen a time in my life or dreamed there would be a time like what I see now that our country is in. So having said that, if in the next presidential election there is a divided country that turns dangerous, what is involved for the military? My understanding is the military has the constitutional right to step in if needed to protect our nation. And I'd just like to know what you know about that, what they have to do, because I'm extremely concerned and scared about what may come next. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Weil?
You know, we have a retired three-star general on our campus, and I happened to have lunch with him today, but I didn't ask him this question, and I'm not sure how expert I am on it. I will say this: I think the danger was greater when you had a president who, you know, had been defeated by the election, who was still trying to hold on, than if you had someone challenging from the outside. I mean, you know, then the next election, presumably, you know, Biden would be president up to at least to January 20th, and he would be the one who would be, you know, calling the shots here. You know, we've been so fortunate, and I don't know that I got the gentleman's name who called, but, you know, we're sort of an anomaly. Since 1800, we have had we've had peaceful elections before that, but we've had peaceful transfers of power from one party to the other without ever having military intervention. And if there was any complaint this year, it was not that we had military intervention, but that, you know, maybe Trump should have called in the military to protect the U.S. Capitol long before he did. I've just got to hope that the ship will sort of right itself. But I think it's a genuine concern. If the military ultimately ends up deciding who won elections, we're in sad shape indeed. And I admire anyone who has participated in politics for 45 years, and it does give you a kind of perspective that things seem a little more out of whack now than they have in the past.
All right. Well, we have another caller, actually. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And what's on your mind?
Okay, what's on my mind? Professor Weil, I have a question for you. When Bill Clinton was, deposed for the
impeached, yeah.
Monica Lewinsky thing, did the taxpayers pay for his attorneys? I don't think they did. I think that's why they had to go fundraising after he got out of office to pay legal bills. But what I'm curious about is this case. I haven't heard any more about it. It's a New York woman, I think. She said that Trump raped her in a dressing room or something, and
yes.
She brought rape charges against him.
Yes.
And the last that I heard was that Trump was going to use Justice Department attorneys, I think 2 or 3 of the best Justice Department attorneys, to be his attorneys. We were going to pay for it in a rape trial against her. And that's the last I heard of it. And to me, that's like, if I'm indigent, the court appoints me attorney, but I've never heard of a wealthy man like that being appointed 3 free attorneys that the taxpayers paid to go slice up a woman that's accusing another person of rape. So what do you know about that? I'm going to hang up and take what you know off the air. If you don't, that's fine too.
Thank you so much for calling.
You know, I wish I knew more. I believe this is a civil case, and I believe it's actually come down less now to did he rape her or did he not, to which one of them is telling the truth. It's almost more, she feels she's been liable. He feels he's been liable because she's accused him of rape. She feels she's been liable because he's denied it. I don't think, because this would be a civil case as I understand it, it's a case between them. And so I don't believe that Trump would be able to use governmental attorneys to defend himself. Now, he could hire someone on his own who used to work at the Justice Department. One of the fascinating things about the last couple days, and it's hard to know how much investigation has been done, but apparently Trump is getting turned down by a lot of very high-priced attorneys right now. That they're afraid he may be going down, and there's apparently also some concern as to whether if he loses they're going to get paid or not. So that adds another complication. But anything that the president did as president, he would have, he could rely on the Justice Department attorneys. But if I'm right, I think this event didn't even occur. I mean, the allegations did, but the event didn't occur when he was president. So it would be, I don't think it would be one where he could use governmental attorneys.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we've had some good questions so far. And I just want to remind people, that the phone number is right there on the screen, 615-737-7587. So if you have any other questions, by all means, just give us a call. But I did want to circle back really quick to when we were talking about the January 6th committee. Obviously, we know that, Liz Cheney she's been voted out, and so soon she will be out of office. She is essentially she is the face of that committee moving forward. But I wonder what impact this will have on Republicans who are still on the fence on whether or not to support Donald Trump or, to move forward and support this January 6th committee, because they've seen now what can happen if you put yourself out there as being someone who is, not necessarily against the former president, but against some of these actions, and it appears like you're against the president, that you may be voted out of office. And so what do you think about the notion that maybe Republicans, this could act as a deterrent for people to go against or speak against former President Donald Trump?
Well, let me add something else, which we sort of skipped over earlier, but one of the concerns about releasing the affidavits here is apparently some of the FBI agents who, after all, don't get to choose which jobs they take, that some of them have been threatened simply because they were on the team that did the investigation. The little bit more nuanced answer to your question is Republicans are by and large supporting election deniers in nominating people for office. But in the general election, this may end up hurting them. And, almost always the party that's out of the presidency picks up seats in both the House and the Senate in these so-called off-year elections, when there's not a president running. But what's interesting is McConnell today was saying he's no longer sure that the Republicans are gonna pick up the seat or two that they need in the U.S. Senate. And it may be, sometimes the person, and this happens to Democrats too, Democrats tend to lean left and Republicans tend to lean right, and your most loyal supporters of both parties are often more on the extremes than they are in the middle. But if you nominate someone too extreme, and then you come to the general election where most Americans, I think, still are in that broad middle, you might end up losing. So you can win a primary, and and remember we talked earlier about how, some Democrats apparently are, somewhat cynically supporting election deniers because they think they're easier to beat in the general election.
And so what you're saying is they may not be necessarily supporting, one person. It's more of supporting election deniers, which could end up blowing up in people's faces when you're relying on the elections in order for you to get into office in the first place.
Right. Majority Republicans apparently still believe that Trump should be the president right now. But that's not true of the majority of Democrats, and it's not true, as far as I can tell, of the majority of independents. So you can have a majority if your party nominates you, but to win the general election, you need a majority of the voters as a whole.
I believe we have Taylor on line 1. Taylor, are you there?
Yes.
All right, what's on your mind, Taylor?
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Powell. I got a couple of remarks to make concerning this. I have a secret clearance when I was in the military, and I worked for the Department of Commerce in Washington for 3 years and had that at the same time. Now, I didn't have a top secret clearance, but just a clearance. But I can say this without any hesitation. There are hundreds of people in Washington that have the stamp for secret and top secret.
Yes.
Don't think everything has the nuclear code on it. There are secrets that would be considered silly by most people. A lot of them are just to keep other people within other departments from even knowing what some particular program is, that, you know, train schedule or something. So the fact that there was some secret documents, it may be serious and it may be laughable. But now, a name that I haven't heard in this entire conversation, it comes from the National Archives. And Professor Powell, take note of this. The director of that has just retired about a month ago. He was appointed by President Obama. He alone was consulted by the FBI when all of the things about Hillary's stuff came up, and he was one of the main people that decided that they would not pursue anything against Hillary. Now, if all this is correct, and the source of this was initiated by this particular individual, I'm going to say in my own heart, there's a whole lot of politics going on here, and so that's my point, and I think that last thing is worth consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Taylor. Dr. Bao?
Well, I think Taylor's, I especially like his initial statements. He's absolutely right. There's all kinds of degrees of top secret, and there's some question as to what authority the president has as commander-in-chief to declassify. And as far as I can tell, the best I can say right now is he does in some cases have that power to do so, but he has to go through special procedures, and it's not clear whether he has done that or not. But what Taylor raises is troubling and worth consideration. One reason that we have a civil service system is that we staff government with people that go from one administration to another, and hopefully will carry out the law, whether it's a law enacted by Democrats or Republicans. But anytime you get to a situation where you begin to question, was this director, and this came up with Comey, right? Was he playing intentionally or unintentionally the role of a partisan instead of even-handed? And the truth is, I don't know in this. I don't have any reason to believe just because he was appointed by Obama that he would necessarily, be opposed to Trump or vice versa. But it could happen. And if it is, that would be a perversion of the way the system is supposed to work. What we are told, and I have no reason to believe that it's not true, is apparently Biden himself did not know that this raid was going to take place. And that would be a suggestion that he at least has tried to keep himself out of affairs involving the Justice Department. I do know enough archivists and librarians to know that you don't want to cross them. They're very protective of their information and, of having information available for the country. So it would be, there would be a certain irony, I think, if the National Archivist, instead of the Attorney General, is ultimately the one who sets in motion something that brings a president to a law court.
Yeah. I believe we got another caller here on line 2. I believe this is Howard. How are you there?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. What's on your mind?
Okay, now people want to discuss how they went into Trump's compound and his personal home. As far as his personal compound, he rented out to government officials and all kind of international affairs people. So it really is not his compound. And that could have been a big break in security right there, because all kind of people, international people from all over the world were staying in the hotel at taxpayers' expense. And the second thing I want to talk about is, we got this governor right here, Governor Lee. He has not spoke of Trump's name since he's been in office. And they passed a law when Hassan was in office about the tax deal. Take the tax on the food off a penny or two, maybe a half a penny, and deliver disregard the wealth tax that these millionaires had to pay. And you've seen what happened. That should have been a conflict of interest with Governor Haslam, because he initiated that, because he just used them profits and money to buy off in the predators. And when he was in office, he said, we need more millionaires in Tennessee. But naturally, we got them now, and they are disregarding all the state laws we have, and just taking over Tennessee, especially Nashville. Yeah. And I want to know why this governor let the roads and highways infrastructure go downhill, and he got all this money stacked up, that he used this money to keep the infrastructure up, the highways and byways. He don't even want to cut the grass on the side of the road. It's 8 feet tall when you go out there to the transportation department out there in Cocker Bend. Now, so something is really wrong.
So, Dr. Val.
But I basically want to say is talk to Trump. He's done some good things for us, letting the taxpayers keep their money, the old child support, the student loans. That was a miracle he got away with that, because my son definitely needed, both of them definitely needed them funds. And I really thought that was good that he could do that. No Democrat ever proposed that, done that. But other than that, he's a tyrant, and something got to go. He will only do so much and then get away with it, and then the law gonna reach out and grab you, no matter what you do.
Well, Howard, let's have Dr. Val here make a remark. But thank you so much for calling.
Well, Howard has raised a couple of issues, and one is, there are levels, as Taylor pointed out, of national security, but there are some things that you do not want in a private house, particularly one where you're inviting a lot of action. You may remember some months ago, there was a Chinese maybe spy or someone wandering around the compound that they arrested. We need to be careful about the security of such documents. As to the second point, Republicans generally favor lower taxes. They tend to be more inclined to big business than others do. Sometimes it aligns with their personal wealth. Sometimes it doesn't. Tennessee is known, for better or worse, we're known as being, for better certainly, we're known as a very fiscally responsible state, have a good pension system that seems very secure compared to a lot of others. We have an awfully large rainy day fund. And in, many states, this fund would have been spent, anytime we had a recession or depression or whatever. And Republican governors seem happy to build it up. And one consequence is sometimes things that, infrastructure and other things don't get done as quickly as we might were the money to be spent.
And we'll get to that all of that actually right after we get back from break. Of course, the phone number is right there, 615-737-7587. We love the phone calls. We'll get back right after this.